Okay, so now let's understand what is TCP IP. So TCP IP are two protocols used in conjunction. So TCP means transmission control protocol, IP means internet protocol. Let's firstly see what are these protocols, what do they do, and then we'll see why they are used in conjunction. So these are a set of protocols that define how the data should travel across the internet. So these two in combination help us get data from one place to other on the internet, as simple as that. So IP is used for addressing and locating a computer on the internet. As mentioned earlier also, that IP address is used for the precise address, unique address of a computer or server on the internet, right? So basically internet protocol only enables that. The unique way of addressing or locating a computer on the internet, that is done by internet protocol or IP. And what is TCP? TCP or Transmission Control Protocol is responsible for the delivery of the data, right? Now why they are used in conjunction? Because you see that IP is like addressing mechanism. Why? So let's say you are moving some goods from one place to other. Then there are roads. That road is basically what? Streets or highway. That is basically our internet. But on that internet, let's say the addressing mechanism or some, let's say, address book, that is our internet protocol, and the internet protocol tells us that exactly where that thing is. TCP tells us how to actually get there, how to move your goods from one place to another, right? So which means that, okay, I have to move something from here to there, but how do you move it? Let's say, okay, this is like 500 kg. I will partition it into 10 bags or 5 bags of 100 kg each, right? And then I will transmit each of them separately or something like so this logistics thing, sort of thing, like, is taken care by transmission control protocol, right? And since both are part of the data delivery mechanism, that's why they are used in combination with each other. Now, as mentioned earlier, both are protocols, right? What is a protocol? Many times earlier also I have mentioned that protocol is simply a set of methods, right, for exchanging or transferring data among different computers of the internet, as simple as that, right? Now by now we have seen like many protocols, right? So for example, TCP is a protocol, IP is a protocol. We earlier saw HTTP is also a protocol. So you might be thinking, why there are so many protocols, right? See, the answer is simple. The protocol is a set of rules, and there can be different rules for different things, right? So for example, when we are moving on the streets, let's say when we are moving on the streets, we have to follow the traffic rules. So their rules, their protocols, right? So but when we are moving, we are following traffic rules. When we are, let's say, communicating with someone, talking with someone, then we are following English grammar rules. There are also rules. Then you don't say, right, that why we are using so many rules. There are many rules, but different purpose has different rules, right, in a similar fashion, right? So don't get confused by so many protocols and so many these things here. Just understand that with just try to correlate with the use cases in real world, and then you will be able to better appreciate the existence of all so many protocols and rules. Okay, now we'll see what are IP packets. So in brief, I mentioned earlier that it might be that the whole data is not going at once, right? We might divide it into some parts. So that is exactly what IP packets are. IP packets are small chunks of data which contain part, not the whole of data being transferred. What is its purpose? The purpose is that, let's say, one of the packets which I transferred gets lost. Then if I'm transferring the whole thing, or lost, or let's say get corrupted, right? Then if I'm passing everything at once without any chunks, then if even if a single bit is corrupted or something, then I have to resend the whole thing. Let's say, imagine there is 1 GB file being transferred all at once, Even a single bit corrupted, you have to again transfer the whole 1 GB. That is bad, right? So what we do is that any file or that document or data being transferred will be divided into chunks, and these chunks are called IP packets. This packets word you must have heard a lot of times, right? But this is exactly what it means, that this TCP/IP protocol in conjunction does this whole thing, that they will split all the data in parts, they will send it parallelly, and that might, all those packets might not follow the same route. In fact, they might follow the different routes, right? They will reach there, and then they will reassemble and recreate that data, and then give it to the other party on the other end. So that is how it works, right? So first thing is that since it is small, it is easy to resend data in case of any issue. That is the first purpose, right? And this purpose is itself enough to do this. But anyways, let's see other things which I just mentioned, that better routing and congestion control. I said that all the chunks don't need to go via the same route, right? Internet is a mesh. Mesh is what? A net. Now, one packet I can send via this way, another packet I can send via this way, anything I can do, right? And I can see that what is the best way in which, the fastest way in which I can send my packets to the other side, right? It can do congestion. That while we were discussing routers, we saw that, right? This routing is being taken care by routers, and which means that if different packets are being routed via different paths, right, then we can also have a big impact on the congestion control of the whole network, in this case the internet, which is our network here, right? And faster data transfer, right? So faster data transfer, we understood that there might be reuse of IP packets, there might be when we are resending, we don't need to resend the whole thing. So in these different ways will enable us to transfer the data in a fast manner. Okay, now let's go somewhat deep into HTTP. We already know HTTP is hypertext transfer protocol. What is hypertext, connected documents, all these things we have seen, right? But right now we are trying to understand what it is, right? Earlier we saw that, yeah, in what context it is used. Then here we will try to go deep into the real purpose. So this is an application layer protocol, which means that two applications talk to each other via this protocol. So I gave you an example of English language, right? So understand it like that, right? If somebody is speaking Chinese, I am speaking Hindi or English, like there is no match, right? So if we are communicating in one language, if you understand English, I understand and follow the rules of English language, and you understand and follow the rules of English language, then we can communicate, right? We can exchange the ideas. Exactly. Here we are exchanging the data. So how the clients and servers speak to each other, which means that how clients and servers transfer data among each other. They speak via this language called HTTP. So among us, like, language is English, among them the language is HTTP, as simple as that. Again, it is a protocol, don't get confused, right? Simple set of rules for a particular purpose, right? So this is what I was talking about, that the browser, which is a client application, talking to server, which is a web server, right? Server application. And we said that a typical HTTP request means that, let's say, a particular machine, let's say client, is making a request to a server, and that server in turn sends response to the machine which initiated the request. This we already know, pretty simple, right? Now, there is a concept of HTTP method or HTTP verb, right? Which is get, post, or something. Actually, it indicates the action which we are trying to perform in that HTTP request. For that HTTP request, what are we trying to do? Okay, we have done some request, but what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get data? Are you trying to give some new data to the server, something like that, right? So this lets us do that intent we want to give to the server, right? So earlier I showed you an example of Flipkart.com, right? So let's again visit that. When we opened earlier the network, right, then we saw that, okay, we got a request method of get. This is what I'm talking about. What I'm trying to do right now, what I did just when I again entered a URL and entered, basically what I'm trying to do, I am trying to get this home page. and that's why its method is get, right? So in get method of HTTP, we are trying to get some information from the server, and the purpose is to simply fetch the data, and that's why it is called get, right? In post, etc., also we will get some response, that is fine, but the purpose of post will be to create something on the server. So let's say you are signing up, right? You are signing up. So when you are signing up, so let's say I am trying to create a new account, right? Then when you write a mobile number, right, or username or password, whatever, right? So when you create that thing, submit that, then basically what is happening is that that request is not a get request, because it is not trying to get some data from the server. It is doing the other way around. It is trying to get some data from the client, from the users, and is trying to post that data to the server. The server might be that new account is created or something like that, right? So that data is posted on the server, and that's why that method is called post. There are some other methods also like delete and something. So but we will not go into that details. We are not learning here that okay, what are the different methods. We are learning here there is something called a HTTP method, right? So that just I wanted to highlight. Another thing is that there is something called HTTP request body, right? So let's say when we are getting the request, then we don't need to send anything server, we are just giving you an address, give me the data. But when we are posting something, right? So let's say we are submitting a form, then we have a username, password, and submit, right? Then this username, password goes to the server along with our request. And it goes where? Actually, it goes in the body section of the HTTP request. So that's why when we say what is the body of the HTTP request, body of an HTTP request will mean that whatever the data we want to wrap, piggyback along with the request and want to send it to the server, right? Okay, now we will go into detail that what happens when you enter a URL in your browser, right? So when I enter this URL, right, there it was a, let's say, a blank page, and I entered this flipkart.com, entered, right? Actually, what happened overall? I believe that by now you have learned everything regarding this, but it is just a page which highlights the whole process and connects all the pieces together. First step, which I mentioned earlier, that the browser goes to the DNS server, gets the IP address, right? Which we mentioned earlier that okay, the browser goes to the DNS server, and it sees that okay, this is the IP address I am trying to go to. Once it gets the IP address, it goes to that computer, right? The browser sends an HTTP request to that computer because it is trying to get the data from that computer. So it asks the server that okay, this is your IP address, hello server, at this IP address, give me a copy of the contents at this URL. So I am opening flipkart.com, then server we are saying that give me the document, HTML document, copy of the data right there at this URL, right? And which means this is like there is no path here, so it is home page, right? At home page, give me that document. That is what is given back to the browser. Now this whole communications to and forth like of the data, when we requested and the data comes, right, or we let's say create some data, then the data goes from whatever, this whole communication, that is where TCP IP comes in. We already discussed, right? The data communication, the transferring of the data. So logistics and addressing. So all these things we don't need to take care of. TCP IP protocols will take care of these things, that how to chunkify the data, how to send it particularly, how to parallelly send it via different routes, how to reassemble at the destination. If some corruption has happened, then resend the data, everything. Once everything is done and the final thing is created, it is given back to you. So in our case, let's say the data is coming from server, everything is fine, then that is given to the browser. Once that is given to the browser, right, then browser displays it. So the server sends the data to the client, and then the browser on the client can display that information to the user, which is this, right? Now the response means the data, which is this thing, right? The data along with status, which is here, you see status code, right? There's something called 200, right? So 200 status code means everything is all right, it is success, right? We'll see there are other status codes, but the point is that apart from data, some status code is also coming in the response. So if you see response, right, so see there are response headers, right, you see. So different things will be there, like from what server it is coming. So nginx is the server. From what is the content type, this is not, this is what type of document, this is HTML type of document, and that's why this is text/HTML. So we don't need to go into all those details, but I will just wanted to show you that the highlight of this thing is that we are going somewhere, we are getting some data, and we are getting it successfully. That's why this is mentioned with 200 status. Now next we will see the different status codes, right? So we saw that sometimes you will see in Google, right? Let's say you go to google.com and you write some random thing, right? Then you see that you get this error 404. What is this 404? Okay, now this is the second time we are seeing this number. So here 200 means okay, everything is fine. See, in a similar manner, 400 means actually this page is not found. This page is not found on this server. So if you request some URL which does not make any sense to the server, right, which means that you have actually made some typo or some mistake or some invalid URL you wrote, the server is no longer supporting that URL, and then it will give you a error which is called 404. Okay, so let's do all these things in too many things we are saying, right? So basically there is a whole thing called HTTP status codes. They are 3-letter digits. We saw that 404 is a 3-letter digit, 200 is a 4. So there is 3-digit codes which are used to indicate the status of the HTTP request, right? And that examples of that status just we mentioned, right? These are some of the examples. There are many codes, but these are some of the most popular codes which are used throughout the internet. Just now we said 200 is the most popular one. Always you get something response successfully, you get 200, right? Another one is like 400. So here also, let's say we write some random whatever not existing, then here also we will see 400 not found, 404 not found. So basically 404 is not found, 200 is okay. There is something called redirection. Okay, so let's say this thing is fine, I am opening flipkart.com, but do you know that if in fact earlier also we mentioned, if we simply write HTTP rather than HTTPS and then enter, then actually what is happening, that it is again going back to HTTPS. But actually how it has happened, we should know in the client, right? Actually we are able to see here, see, actually HTTP is permanently moved. That's why 301. See, 301 code says that it is permanently redirected to where? To HTTP has permanently moved to where? To HTTPS. And then HTTPS gives us the success with .document. So here we are seeing that status codes gives the client a view that actually what has happened with your request. Is it redirecting? Is it error? Is it success? These things we are able to see. And you see that all these things actually form a category. So this numbering, all obviously 3-letter numberings are there, but actually they are numbered in a special way. It's not that you have to learn all these codes. Some are like 404 not found, 200 okay, 300. These are like very popular, so by some time, after some time you will be able to remember. But the point is that you by simply seeing the code, you will have a pretty good idea that what type of error is there. For example, if it starts with 2, it means it is success sort of something. I don't know like what type, but exactly it is success type. Exactly what type of success, that I don't know, but it is successful, that I know. Similarly, if it starts with 3, it is some sort of redirect. I don't know what type of redirect, temporary, permanent. There are other types of redirect also possible, but the point is some sort of redirect. If it is starting with 4, then it is a client error, and if it is starting with 5, then it is a server error. Understand? Exact codes you don't need to remember, but I'm just giving you a overview, an idea. If it starts with 4, which means that, see, it is my fault that I some gibberish URL I typed which is wrong, right? So it is whose error? It is whose fault? It is client's fault, and that's why the code is 4. But if the let's say URL is perfect, right? But still some error comes, right? then it is not my fault, it is server's fault. So this rarely happens, but if let's say Google goes down, right, then if it is successful, then obviously it will show you that okay, I'm 200. But let's say if that website goes down, then it might send you some 503, let's say that okay, right now we are under maintenance, we are giving you this error to notify you that we cannot serve you right now. Or there can be something other wrong. So let's say you send some input which is valid, but server is not properly handling that. In backend code has not been properly written. In that case, the backend code might crash or might give some weird error, right? And that can be internal server error. My request was perfect, but you did some error on your part, right? Again, that is a server error. So you see the category. The category I was trying to say that 1 followed by any two numbers, like this XX means two other two digits. But if it is starting with 1, that is informational. If it is starting with 2, that is success related. If it is starting with 3, that is redirection related. Starting with 4, client related error. Starting with 5, server related error, right? So now we are in pretty good shape of understanding the whole thing, right? That okay, what are HTTP requests, how they work, what are codes, right? What are different methods or verbs of HTTP, right? And if you want to know much more detail, then obviously always you can Google. For example, I can type that whatever are the HTTP status codes, and when I go, then I can find some Mozilla documentation which will have detailed information, right? That okay, see whatever just now we mentioned, right? That type of collection of message intents. Now the response, see 100 like information, so what type of, there are many types of 100. Similarly 200, just now we saw 200, okay, but there can be other things, right? We might not need the response, full response. We might just send something to the server and say that okay, you don't send me anything, just inform me that you have created it, that's it. So you understand now? The point is that you can always go into the documentation and read in a lot of detail, that and that will be useful when you are dealing with APIs and with some third-party APIs and they're giving you some particular errors. But the point is that you should know that something like status codes exist. You should know the foundational concept of status codes. Next, you should know that if I need any help, where should I go? I should Google and go to the proper documentation where I can get tons of information, much more than what could I ever tell you, right? So these are the fundamental concepts on which we can understand that how the web is working right now.